And now to offer further insights into the potential opportunities that e-commerce offers Africa's youth, I have expert guests standing by. In Lagos, Omolara Adagunodo, she's the managing director at Jumia Travels in Nigeria. In Johannesburg, Vivian Onano, she's a youth activist and member of the UN Women Global Civil Society Advisory Group. Thank you both for joining in the conversation. Omolara, let me start off with you in Nigeria. Now, Jumia was founded about 5 years ago. It is now touted as the largest e-commerce platform in Africa. You're operating in several African countries. What is it that has made you succeed, though, in this environment?
Okay, for us, what has been distinguishing is the fact that we adapt to the local markets a lot. And because each market you would find, even though we're one African market, it's a bit of a fragmented market. So we have the ability, which has helped us to adapt to each of the local markets. We infuse a lot of the localities in what we do and in our offers and in our presentation to the customers. I think that has been one very important ingredient for us.
Omolara, though, if you look back 5 years ago, though, because e-commerce is quite relatively new in Africa, if you look back 5 years when you started, how different is the operating environment now? How different are things today as opposed to 5 years ago?
Oh, okay. Well, it's totally different, to be honest. If you look at how much people have moved, how much they have embraced tech, and how much they have accepted a new way of working, a new way of seeing life, it has been phenomenal. 5 years ago, you'd barely have somebody confident enough to use his card in paying online, or to even try to go online to shop. Today, the customers' mindsets are different. The first thing they think about when they want to shop, when they want to book a hotel, when they want to buy food, is go on Jumia. So I think it's totally different now. We have more acceptance today than we did 5 years ago. We have more confidence in the market today than we did 5 years ago.
Vivian, you're listening to Omolara, though, and e-commerce is quite a new platform for Africa here. Are there opportunities here for Africa's young people?
Absolutely. First of all, I'm very thrilled with the work that Omolara is doing with Jumia, which has really grown over the past 5 years, as you said. But as you look at the continent right now, with the case of youth unemployment, but also rising number of users when it comes to social media, I think a good example has been Instagram, the way people have tried to use it to build their businesses. I have a good friend of mine from Gambia who is into swimsuit wear and Ankara dresses, and she's used her Instagram to market herself and also sell to people outside of Gambia and outside of West Africa to Southern Africa. So there's a big opportunity, and what needs to happen is we need to remove the regulations and the taxes for us to build this new platform and new opportunity for young Africans to take advantage of.
When we talk about taking advantage of, Vivian, though, because we are talking about 420 million young people in Africa, but we are also seeing about possibly 3% of those get jobs. How are Africa's youth, though, taking advantage? Are they able to take advantage of those opportunities offered by platforms such as e-commerce?
No, absolutely. I mean, right now, if you look at the number of young people who have access to mobile phones, and if you look at Kenya, the way M-Pesa has revolutionized the whole business space, even those people who did not have access to bank accounts, which majority of them are always young people, now can be able to save their money and can be able to do transactions using the mobile phone. So there's opportunity there, there's curiosity, and there's more and more young people who are trying to do the businesses using the e-commerce. The problem is when you go to the rural areas where most of the young people are, there's still not that knowledge and exposure to the technology so that they can be able to take advantage and also be part and parcel of this revolution. So I think there's the curiosity, there's the need, but I think there's more to be done when it comes to access and also education.
Omolara,
access to information too, sorry.
Vivian has mentioned, Omolara, that there is a demographic in the rural setup that are not able to access internet, given that Africa constitutes about 10% of the total world internet users? Is this a demographic that you're reaching out to at Jumia?
Yes, we have that challenge, to be honest. And, you know, like I said, one of the successes we've had at Jumia is the ability to adapt to these situations. What we have done to mitigate this a bit at Jumia is to create what we call the J-Force, which is basically a team of online direct sales agents who are able to then tap into this opportunity to buy and sell on Jumia to people who don't have access to internet. So there are about 45,000 of them we have today, scattered all over Nigeria. And basically what they do is help people in their communities, people in their localities who don't have access to buy online to do the purchases, and then they get paid a commission for that. So in that peculiar situation, we actually had an opportunity to empower the youth the more, to help them earn a bit more money.
Right. Vivian, and if I just come back to you again as to how big that consumer market is in Africa now, how big is the consumer market in Africa when it comes to e-commerce?
The market continues to grow. For example, here in South Africa, last year alone, they had 48% adults who did the cross-border online shopping, and the numbers were at 35.1 billion rands, and they are forecasted that by 2018, the numbers are going to rise to 53.1 billion rands. So there is a big market there's a need for it, but how do you make sure that everybody can be able to access it? And also when I go back talking about the rural population, access to infrastructure, power, access to electricity becomes a major hindrance. So if you have a mobile phone, but you cannot be able to charge your mobile phone, and you don't have access to a bank account, so you cannot be able to make the online purchases and transactions, I mean, you're left out. You're left out of this new wave of industrialization, or new wave of doing business. And there's a lot that's happening in the rural areas when it comes to agriculture, that if we're able to open the markets, and if this population is able to tap into the e-commerce, it is going to definitely revolutionize the unemployment, but also the food security that we are grappling with on the African continent. With
those challenges, though, Vivian, how viable then is e-commerce in Africa?
It is, because when we step aside from the challenges, if you look at the urban areas, young people are actually trying to tap into the e-commerce. And I was giving you an example of the young lady from Gambia who is using Instagram to be able to do her transactions and be able to sell to different markets. So there is a big market for it. I think we just need to improve on our infrastructure, but also on the side of the new businesses, removing the regulations and the taxes so that we can maximize on it. But infrastructure is really big as we move forward and as we continue to expand the markets.
Omalara, is there a big market now for e-commerce?
There is, yes. There is a big market today, and I think, you know, as infrastructure improves, and as the communities grow more and understand more about e-commerce and how it can help them and how they can reach out to people, you know, that never even knew they were on the map, I think there is still a bigger opportunity to grow it still. But today, yes, we're not where we were 5 years ago. We're probably not where we should be yet, you know, when we look at companies like Alibaba or Amazon. But we're definitely moving forward with e-commerce. It's going to get bigger.
So how would you, you mentioned two companies, Amazon and Alibaba, and of course, Jumia is touted as the Amazon of Africa, though. What would it take to put Africa on the same level, or African entrepreneurs or Africa's businesses on the same level as Alibaba or Amazon?
Okay, to be honest, there is still a lot of work to be done in Africa as a whole if we want to get there. You know, like I mentioned earlier, we have a highly fragmented market in Africa. And it is really difficult, you know, to move things cross borders between countries, even neighboring countries. It is expensive. So the first thing we need to think of is how to involve governments and how to make them part of building e-commerce, and how to introduce them to e-entrepreneurship, how they can come in here.
Vivian, introducing e-entrepreneurship to Africa's youth may be an avenue to solving Africa's youth unemployment problems here. So Vivian, how can young people then tap into this potential? What would young people need to do to tap into this potential?
That's a very good question, Beatrice. So for young people to tap into the e-commerce and e-entrepreneurship, I think access to technology is going to be very important, and access to reliable sources of power, it's also going to be very important, because everything is happening online, and that has a lot to do with technology, and that has a lot to do with power. But also access to exposure and opportunities for them to maximize on this, because there are those who are already talented and already have their ventures on the ground, but they still just don't know how to come online, how to do the transactions online, because there's a lot there's a lot of technical information that's involved in the whole process. So how do you make sure that they're actually well equipped to be able to handle the information, the data, because this is people's information that's very private. How are they able to handle all that data and also analyze the data for them to be very successful in that space? And as Malara was talking about Alibaba, I mean, Jack Ma the other day said the most important skill in the next coming years is going to be data analytics. So how do you make sure that the young people from the continent are well equipped to be able to handle all that?
Right.